Hello my friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another video here on my YouTube channel. Today we are celebrating Sweet Jamie, the owner of the Not Too Shabby Shop, hitting 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. There are tons of giveaways from some amazing sponsors, and all of that information will be linked and listed down below, so be sure to head down there. But let's hop into what I am making. I'm going to be using some Miss Ink stamps, one of Jamie's wonderful sponsors. So we've got the Punny Farm Goats. We're pairing that up with the Daze stamp set. And then we're also going to bring in the Frosty Flakes stencil, which don't be fooled, I'm going to use this for something not frosty. But I think it'll be great. So we'll get started by inking up our Daze stamp onto some Express It cardstock using some Blackout ink. I'm going to stamp that down a couple times. Then we're also going to make a mask, and we're using some Avery ID labels. These are 6465, and I'll have those linked down below, but that's going to be our mask. And so because we're masking, I need to do some fussing cutting, and some of this might be, for some of you, a little bit laborious, but I don't mind it, and the end result, in my opinion, is so worth it. So I'm cutting out all the pieces. This one, I kind of, went around just parts of it. I didn't go too crazy going around it, but now we're going to peel off that release paper for each of those masks, and then we'll stick those down onto our cardstock, covering up the parts that we want to make sure stay white and crisp. So a couple of hay bales. You'll also see that we have the posts down there, and then that lower right hand corner has that cluster of sunflowers. So we've got plenty that are going to be covered up. And I'm doing this because you could just go ahead and come in with like Copic markers, but I really didn't want to try and do all of that with Copic. I thought that would be too much, so I'm going to do some ink blending. All right, now all of our masks are down. We're going to start with some dried Marigold. We're going to use our blender buddies and just blend that on that upper part by the sun. Just get a good base down there. And then the next color that we're going to come in with is some squeezed lemonade. So I'm going in starting with that light orange. Then we're eventually going to go into that very light, bright yellow. And like I said, just wanted to kind of come up with like a sunrise. And for me, the way I find these is by hopping on Pinterest and just typing in sunrise. And then there are so many great color inspirations that you can go for and try to mimic. So now that we're blending those, the last color I'm going to bring in is some Stormy Sky. So I'm going to do that just at the very, very top and blend that slightly into the yellow, our squeezed lemonade. I didn't want to go too crazy into that because that would have, kind of given us a new color of green, and I didn't want that yet. And now for the rest of our panel, we are going to put crushed olive down. And so I'm just going to blend that crushed olive all over the bottom half, covering that all up. And then the next thing I want to do, and this is where the mask was important, I'm going to bring in that Frosty Flakes stencil. I'll tack that down with some mint tape because I don't want that to move. But this stencil is one of those that I like to call a continuous stencil. It can work on any size panel. So even though it's a 6x6 stencil, you can use it on a slimline like this. I'll show you how. So the next color I brought in is Rustic Wilderness, and I'm just putting that right over the top. And I'm going to go almost all the way down to the bottom of our stencil. I didn't want to go all the way down because I didn't want to risk going past the stencil. So once I am happy with the saturation of the color that I've put down, I'm going to pick that stencil up and move it down. It's just that easy. Just kind of line up the flakes through there, the ones that you've already done, and you can continue on with what you were doing. And so then that 6x6 stencil is now good for a slimline. How is that? All right, the magic comes when we start peeling back, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I did want to soften these edges with that Rustic Wilderness, and I'm going to do that all along the green. I just thought that would be kind of nice. I will trim this panel down because this panel is bigger than what I normally like to make my slimlines to be, so this is going to get trimmed down pretty well. But now we're going to do the reveal. And I'm going to hang on to these masks since that did take some time to trim those away, but just be careful. You don't want to tear your mask. And those ID labels are great because I have never had an issue with them tearing the paper underneath. So I really love those. It's an inexpensive way to get a ton of masks. All right, we're just peeling those away. I'm holding on to my reverse tweezers like I was actually going to use them, but I don't end up using them. I'm just holding them. But that is one way you could do it, just to get those smaller pieces, because those can get underneath the paper a little bit better. But we're just sticking our masks right on top of the stamp itself, so that I can keep all of those. Isn't that neat though, to see that block of white? You could almost leave it like that. That'd be kind of neat just to do it like that. But I'm going to come in and color this. So I'm going to bring in some Copics. We're going to go pretty quickly here. I'm not going to show you all of it. But for our sun, we'll start with some Y02. And we're just going to complete this scene. And yeah, it did take a little bit of time, but I just love how this turned out. And I love that stenciled background. Our next color is some Y18. We'll blend that out a little bit with our Y02. And then I wanted this to look like a hay field where they had just taken the hay. And so I'm using some Y26. And then we're going to come in with some YR24 and just do some flicking motions. I won't even have to blend that. And we'll use those same colors on all of our hay bales. And we're still going to use that on all of our sunflowers as well. I wanted the background, even though it is nice and cool and intricate and beautiful, really, in my opinion, I wanted this to be kind of more in the background. We're going to put our little goat down. You can see I already stamped him out onto some Express It cardstock using that same Blackout ink. Those are just really Copic friendly. But we're not going to show you all of the coloring of all the sunflowers, because you got some hopping to do. And I know you don't want to hang out here and watch me color the whole time. Or maybe you do. Maybe you do. And if you do, then come on back and watch some more of my videos. But yeah, so we'll just bring in that YG25, and then that G07 is our darker shade for that. And then we're going to go up and use those same colors on those bushes and on this tree. And we'll bring in that G07 for a darker shade. It's so funny how it just takes it up a notch when you bring in some darker shades and then blend that out. Now we need to color our barn. I'm not going to do that as like your traditional red type of barn. We're going to make this more of a white barn. So I've got some E43. And then we'll blend that out with our colorless blender. And then I'm going to use that same E43 on the shed roof and on the doors, or I mean the barn roof, the barn doors. And we're going to bring in for the silo just some grays. I'm not going to show you that, but I did bring in some grays, very, very light grays. And then this is the E44. We'll go down below to our posts and we'll use those same exact colors on those. And then we'll use the E44 for the center of our sunflowers, and we'll bring in some E89 as a darker shade. And then blend that out with that E44. And that'll take care of all the coloring of our background. I do love how this turned out. So now we got to color our adorable little goat from the Punny Farm Goat stamp set. And I've got the E41 color. That's my base coat, or base color. And then I'm going to bring in some E43. And then we'll blend that out a little bit. Put that on his hooves. But we'll blend that with the E41. And then we'll bring in that E44 again for just some darker bits for his hooves and his horns. And then for his ears, we have some R11. So super easy. And then I'm going to fussy cut that out and trim down our panel a little bit. Now we have to get our sentiment ready. So I used a powder tool on some sentiment stock, covered that with some white embossing powder, and then we're going to heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And then we'll trim that down and get our card base ready. So our card base measures 7 inches by 8.5 inches, scored at 3.5 inches. And I do end up stamping a couple of those goats on the inside of our card base. Just have a little something in there. I'll use some liquid glue on the back and then attach this down to our card base. You can see that nice white border. It's very thin. I put some foam tape on the back of our goat and our sentiment, and I'll line this up on my glass mat and put that down. Trying to center that up, and we'll do the same thing with our sweet little goat. And then I just have to flip this over and trim off the excess from our sentiment. And when I'm done with that, that's going to be it. That is our card. So I would love to know what you think of it. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And head down to my description box so you can hop around so that you can have a chance to win. Big congratulations to Jamie. You are awesome. And I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.